In this video, I'm going to go over how you can grow your commercial cleaning business. Now, first things we're going to do is we're going to see what is the difference between targeting a property manager and any other decision maker that we've targeted in the past. Then we're going to break down the different angles that get them interested, and then how you can write these angles to hopefully grab their attention and pitch your service. Now, if you're struggling with getting the attention of any of these property managers, you've tried to get these big contracts for these big facilities, but you're struggling, well then this is exactly what we're going to go over in this video. And don't worry, me and my partner, we've worked with a lot of different businesses in this industry for some time, and we've dealt with a ton of decision makers. So our only job is to optimize our messaging to make sure that these decision makers answer, right? So don't worry about that. We're going to go through all of it in this video. And without any further discussion, let's get right into it. All right, the first things we're going to look at is what are the priorities of a property manager? Well, the property manager, first things we need to understand is the context of their placement. What does that mean? Well, why are they there in the first place? Who are they serving? What are their interests? Well, when you have a facility, you place a property manager so that they take off the headache from your shoulders. They manage the property to make sure that they're operating the facility in the cheapest way possible without compromising on quality. And they're also able to sustain the facility without, causing any harm to the tenants and so on and so forth, right? So like they're making sure that the facility is ongoing and running, right? It's maintained. Perfect. So here we understand that the property manager is acting in the interest of the property owner, right? So they're not acting on their own interest. And what does that do? Well, that makes us understand that whenever we're talking to the property manager and we're trying to convince them of something, they have the property owner in mind and their interest. So when you're talking to them, you're trying to see what does the property owner want? What would make the property owner like to hear from the property manager, right? It's a bit of a triangle going on here, but that's how you have to approach it. That's what you have to have in your mind. So what does that give us? Well, let's look, what are the priorities of the property owner and in extension, the property manager? Well, the first and most important one that the rest actually follow is the net operating income of the facility, right? So how much are they actually making from the facility? Right. So you're going to probably ask yourself, where do you lie in this? Well, we're going to look over here on this net operating income sheet. Well, first things first, there's the rental income. Then comes all the rest of the expenses that regarding the facility, right? So that's the power bill, property taxes, repairs and maintenance, commercial cleaning services. And as you can see, you lie right over here, right? So this is you and you're in that bill. So with that being said, how can you try and use this angle? Well, the role of the property manager is to maximize the net operating income, right? So since you're a subtraction from this equation, you're trying to make yourself as minimal as possible. So here it's a pricing or a value issue. Now, if you're giving them more for less, then obviously you're going to win. If you're giving them less for the same, it's not doing much for them. And what I mean here is that you're trying, or you can even, other perspective is to be charged more, like to charge them higher fees, but make sure you're giving them greater value, which takes, it makes maintenance less maybe, right? If you're cleaning the property well and you're maintaining the property in a good way, then they might have to decrease their maintenance fees because they don't have to maintain, there's less repairs and less maintenance that needs to be done. So here you're helping them reduce the NOI even though you're charging them more. With that being said, you're trying to find all the different angles that you can use to put it in the perspective of the property manager that you're providing more value for less than what they currently have at the moment, right? And with that being said, we're going to go further to see the next two, but make sure that you have this equation in mind just because they all do tie back to this one. Wonderful. Now let's go into number two. All right, the second most important thing for the property manager is vacancy. What they're trying to do is to try and increase the amount of residents in the building so that they're making more income and increasing their net operating income, right? And what that means is they're trying to minimize their vacancy. So trying to get more people into the facility. Now, let's look at the top reasons for vacancy. First things is rents are set too high, and that's not of your control, but that's one factor. Then poor curb appeal, which basically means that it does not look maintained. Then being available, management has weak sales and closing skills, and then ineffective advertising or vacant units are not ready to show. So where do we lie in this equation? Well, you can see that you're right over here at number two, right? So poor curb appeal. And let's just have a read. At a property can be a contributing problem. People do not tour or apply when grounds appear to be neglected. Factors such as peeling paint, poor landscaping, broken glass, dilapidated vehicles. Sorry, I'm not too well versed on that. But weeds, trash, and liquor bottles scattered through the property are strong deterrents and will not attract quality residents. We recommend that a property be kept clean, in good repair, and up to date in all appearances. So you fall within this sector, right? And this is another point you can make, right? You want to make sure that you're using this angle to convince the property manager of the value you bring. So we help facilities minimize and keep vacancy at all-time lows by ensuring that the curb appeal is at a maximum through our whatever mechanism you have, maybe a special mechanism you've got to sound fancy, or through our specialty of whatever cleaning to help minimize the vacancy, right, and maintain current tenants and attract new tenants. Right, so that's one angle I'm just making off the top of my head, but you can see how this applies, right? So by decreasing vacancy, they're increasing their net operating income, and that's obviously the priority of a property manager, as that helps with satisfying the property owner, right? And that's that. So that's for number 2, right? And I've got my source over here, and you could be searching online for other other sources that help back this and get some stats on this, and you can use it as well in your messaging, right? So you can find a stat that says 20% or 30% a reason why people vacate a property, or maybe 20% of why people don't visit a property is because it doesn't look clean or well kept and maintained in the images, right? And that's a stat you can use as a weapon or as a bullet in your messaging. So that's just a tip for you guys. Now let's go to number 3. All right, number 3, appreciation value. So when we look at appreciation value, what does that mean? Well, it's basically over time, does the property become more valuable or less valuable, right? And when we look at the priority of the property manager, well, first we have to go back to the property owner. So the property owner, what is the favorable outcome? Well, it's for the appreciation value to go up, correct? So in turn, obviously, the property manager would like the appreciation value to go up, and that's why we have maximization in brackets. So we're trying to increase the appreciation value. Now, what are some factors that affect appreciation? Well, we're going to go through some of these, which are not obviously all in your control, and then we'll see where you lie in this equation. So first things first, there's location, proximity to commercial area, so the area around, property condition, economic factors that are out of your control, right? Of course, the list goes on and on, but these are reasonably the more important factors that are the pillars of that value. Now, where do we lie in this equation? Well, I'm sure you could tell, but it's over here, property condition, right? So the more a property is sustained and maintained in a good manner, and it's clean and needs less maintenance, and is, it's reliable in terms of its internal cleanliness and hygiene, you're gonna have to spend less to fix it. You're gonna have to spend less to clean it. It's been maintained over a long period of time, right? Like, it's not only that recently it's been cleaned, because obviously that makes a big difference, right? Like when it's been cleaned consistently rather than just towards the end, you can just tell there are certain things that it's hard to remove. So with that being said, your approach is that you're there to make sure that you're consistent month in, month out with your cleaning. It's always the same, ongoingly progressing, researching the best way to clean in the most effective way, all these things to keep the property in the best pristine, maintained way possible, right? And that basically makes them see it in the light of, okay, they're gonna increase our appreciation value. Well, you obviously have to make that link to them, right? You tell them like, this could be an angle that you test, right? So like, we help facilities maintain we help property managers maintain their facilities over long periods of time through our specialty cleaning, so that the building is well kept, well maintained, up to hygiene standards, depending on your area, what is required, and this helps increase appreciation value by whatever percentage, right? And by the way, I do want to mention, for all previous 3, try to look at your previous clients, because you might have done some of these things without even noticing. But for example, for appreciation value, look at a property you've dealt with in the past, look at what it could have been or evaluated at in the past in terms of value, and then after you went there and you cleaned it up, and the before and after and things of that sort, what the appreciation value is right now. Of course, there are other factors that help with it, but you could just show them where your contribution was made. So that's the general idea. And with that being said, that's a factor that they will definitely take into consideration, just because this helps the property owner, think that the property manager is doing a good job, because that is their job at the end of the day. Now, let's just conclude on all 3 angles and what this means for you and what you can actually do from now on going forward. All right, so let's conclude over here. How to close property managers for commercial cleaning, right? Now, for the first part is to research their priorities. And we've already done that on your behalf. I've given you the top 3. Of course, there are more priorities that you can go ahead and look. Also, this is based on our data, which is obviously done in the US over a lot of different areas. But you know, it just depends on your specific region. Maybe it's an outlier or maybe even one of those perform better than the other. In general, you want to test all the different priorities. Then you identify where you lie in that equation. So where do you actually play a role in that priority? Then you want to gather proof of how you've done it in the past for others. And this you might find, difficult in terms of, okay, how can I show that I decreased the NOI, right? The net operating income. Well, you can just go ahead and clearly see for this certain property worked in the past, how much were they paying for cleaning in the past? And then for maintenance, you can look at other things of, okay, were they paying for maintenance on other things? Were they having to repaint or redo certain things because the cleaning was not good? That they have to continuously bring in pest control for maintenance because, the property was just not clean or well kept. And these are things that you usually have in your head when talking with the property manager you've been hired in the past. And then you could see what it's done for them after they've hired you, right? So like, how many pest control hires they've had to do or calls they've had to do, how many hygiene tests they have to do, things of that nature, right? And you can just pile that up, see the percentages, come up with some metrics, make it easy to consume as well, because these property managers are busy and they just want direct, short input value, right? So go with that approach, gather that proof, and then be direct and write messaging that displays the gap. So show where they are right now, right? So for that previous owner that you had, try to make them feel like they're in that position. So, if you feel like this is where you are, we've helped someone do this in this amount of time, or we increased it by this percentage or decreased it by this percentage. And now they're doing whatever, right? You're just trying to show them the gap of where they are right now, where they could be with your service, and you do that with the proof and with that priority that is really important to them, and then that's that. And you just send them through that message, and you test all priorities and optimize. So you write all these priorities, you create messaging for all of them, and then you send it out to a lot of different different decision makers. Well, actually, the property managers. Thing is, this framework does work for all decision makers, by the way, if you do apply it. So you just research the priority of a different decision maker, and you go ahead and do the same thing. Just the direct messaging and stuff would be different, just because it depends on the decision maker, how they like the message. But other than that, let's just stick to property managers. Go back on topic. You research the priorities, identify where you lie in the equation, gather the proof, be direct, and then you go ahead and send all these priorities and all these messages to different property managers. Analyze the data, see which one is hitting more, and this could be more than one, and you just optimize that message to see what they like most, and you can test and iterate different variations of that message to see if you're getting better and better results or worse and worse, and you want to keep it the same, you want to make adjustments, or if this is an optimized message and just keep it as is, and all you have to do is just add better evidence as you go along. And that's basically it. And like I said, you can use this framework for all different types of decision makers. Of course, we're going to be releasing some more videos on different decision makers and how to target them better and more effectively. But yeah, overall, that's it for this video. Hopefully you can go ahead and implement this and try to be consistent with it to generate results for yourself. If you do have further questions or feel like you want some more resources on how you can generate more for your cleaning business, you can just click the link in bio for a full breakdown on how we help commercial businesses really go from like having a inconsistent lead flow. If you feel like you're not really consistent with the leads that are coming in, and you just want to book in more calls to just do more walkthroughs, then you just click that link in that bio, give the full blueprint A to Z and all the steps to do it, right? Just like for this, but from A to Z, how to send the messages, how to write the messages, how to target, how to all of that good stuff, right? So you can just go ahead and click that link in bio or in the description. But other than that, that's it for this video, and I'll see you guys on a next one.